Hi, welcome to Parenting Challenging Kids. Today we're going to talk about making the right things easy and the wrong things harder for kids, and also how that builds resilience and helps them to be able to handle hard things. I'm Dr. Michelle Alden, and I'm so glad to have this opportunity today. I was thinking about this at first in terms of working with horses. I grew up on a ranch and have horses now, and most of my kids are really familiar with horses and work with horses too. So one of the things that I think about is horses are pretty consistent, and they are going to do what's the easiest for them. And a lot of lower brain based animals are like that, and they're going to do what is the easiest for them. And if you make it easy for them to push you around, to be rude to you by pushing you where they want you to go, or bucking you off or whatever, then that's what they're going to do. And if you make it easy for the horse to be relaxed and calm and accurate, then they are going to you're going to have this dance between you and your horse. And it's not going to be too long before your horse is looking for what that is that you want them to do. I also used to be a dog trainer, and I see very similar things with this. And so what you make easy for the horse, that's what they're going to want to get good at. And that's really a mindset, I think, that is really helpful to have with our kids too. And even when they have a lot of big challenges, or they have a lot of big emotions, or they feel, maybe it's described like this, that they feel everything in such a big way. And maybe you can identify with that because as their parent, you're like, oh, I was the same way and no one understood me. And it used to be that parents would tell me all the time, like, I was never allowed to get away with that. Now it's more like nobody understood me, nobody allowed me to have my feelings. And so maybe what I'm seeing is kind of this overcompensation for that, that we're going to allow all this room and space for kind of maybe even the behaviors that we don't want to see, but we don't know what else to do about it. So if you've listened to me, you know that I'm all for letting children have their feelings. I'm not saying they shouldn't feel a certain way, they shouldn't have these feelings, but not allowing them to work through the discomfort of the feelings that they're having, that is a big reason why we have such a mental health epidemic. Is we have these big feelings as people, our children have those big feelings, and we're not helping them how to work through it. And for a lot of kids, that is work that can be done even when they're toddlers. And it's identifying with those feelings and helping them through it, but it's not staying camped there, and it's not ignoring it, and it's also not punishing it, but it's saying, wow, that's really hard, that's difficult, and now what are we going to do about it? Kids need to know how to also move away from those feelings. And I think it's a really important skill, because when I talk to adults that really struggle to share their emotions or to handle their emotions, a lot of times they're afraid of those emotions because they are so big and overwhelming, and they don't realize that you can take those emotions out and explore it and think about what it feels like and where you feel it in your body, and all of the thoughts that you have about those emotions. And then you can also put those away and aside and say, I don't have time to think about this right now, but at 2:00 I'm going to journal about that for a half an hour, or so you can kind of learn how to put those in different places. And I think that sometimes we get mixed up and we think that if we're compartmental it's not going to happen today, that if we put it in that compartment, then we're not going to be able to get it out when we want to get it out, and that we're just going to that is the same as shoving it down or shoving it aside. And that is not the case. It's knowing that our emotions don't have to control all of us, and our emotions are not going to control everybody around us. And I think that is another huge thing that our kids, and maybe we as people, need to understand and learn, that just because I'm feeling a way doesn't mean that it can control everybody else around me. So there's a time and a place that we can have sadness and grief and loss, and work through, if we have loss, we can't control it necessarily, but we can work through the pain of that. But then there's other times when we can't do that. Like, I might not be able to do that. I might not be able to focus on what's going on with me in a moment when I'm focusing on helping someone else with what's going on with them. And it's a good skill to know that I can, let's put that aside right now, and when we get home, let's talk about that, or let's journal about that. I have lots of kids that we talk about, that's a really good thought. Why don't you write that down? And they don't want to write it down, so they're more willing to move away from it. Or we tell them, we're gonna hold on to that, and when it's journal time, you're gonna write about that, or instead of journal time, you're gonna come tell me about that. And just, it's almost like that, taking your thoughts captive, being able to control that. It stops kind of the thoughts around the feelings, so that you have a different thought, like, oh, I have this feeling, it's okay, I'm going to talk about it at this time. And I think that is a really good skill for people to use and learn. Life is kind of full of pain and disappointment, and there's outcomes that are beyond our control. And when kids are playing games, when there's a winner, when there's a loser, even in the recent election, there's going to always be some people that are upset and some people that are happy, and maybe a bunch of people that don't know what is okay to feel because of the extreme feelings on either side, and we can teach our kids by modeling that as adults, that it's okay. Like, we don't have control of all the outcomes and all of the things in our environment, but how we show up and how we handle that is huge. So it's okay, because we are going to move on. We are going to have the next day. We are going to have the next moment. So being in your painful feelings is a good thing. It's okay to be able to say, like, there's nothing wrong with you. It's all right that you're feeling this way. I can see that you're angry or disappointed or frustrated, but it's what can we do from that place of pain? I remember, it's been quite a few years, but I went through a period of time where I really wanted to read biographies or autobiographies of people that had gone through some really hard things, and how they didn't become bitter, and how they used those things to impact the world or to make changes. And that's an amazing thing when you read people's life stories and you find out where that catalyst was. There's other people that the things that happen to them define them, and that becomes part of them, and then they don't recover from it. They kind of use that as their reason for why they are how they are. There's a lot of people with that kind of almost like a victim mentality, and you may see that in your kids. I have a lot of parents that tell me, my kid is always such a victim, right? They're always being bullied. They're all these different things. Everybody's out to get them. That's the way their brain is functioning, and we have to help them to know how to move through that. So just, letting them know, like, it's okay. What you're feeling is okay. You're not wrong, but is there anything we can do about that right now? And what should we do about it? Would it help if you, ran some laps? Would it help if we went for a walk? Would it help if we wrote some stories? Whatever we need to do. And also just know too, the more emotional your child is in that moment, the less ability they're going to have to make a decision. So when you're asking them, what are you feeling? Or are you feeling this? Or are you feeling that? Sometimes you just need to name it. Like, I can tell that you're really disappointed, and I'm disappointed too. And that's really hard. Is there anything that we can do right now to make that better? And if there's nothing, then can we not ruin the whole day, or do we need to stay here for a little while longer in this disappointment and sadness? And sometimes they just need, in those moments, you get to just kind of sit by, and maybe they want to talk, but a lot of times kids don't want to talk, and sometimes we want to talk, and that's not always helpful. So just remember that out of the darkness comes the light. And so we're not protecting our kids from having uncomfortable feelings, but we're also not protecting them from we're not saying that we can't. What I'm trying to say is that we can't orchestrate everything in the world so that our kids don't have uncomfortable feelings. And I see that happening so much right now. I was thinking, it's like in the olden days, before we had ways to deal with, like, when kids would get hurt, scratches, even bumps, broken bones, like they were life-threatening things way back in the day, before, even older than me. And I read to my kids about, like, in the early pioneer days and stuff, how they would put pillows around kids to keep them safe. And now we talk about bubble wrapping kids. And sometimes I wonder about, like, all the soft things that we have in our world. We have so many kids with these sensory issues, right? That I remember my siblings, like, wearing terry cloth things that are really not like soft velour or soft fabric like we had today, but my this almost like rougher thing. And now everything has to be like the cloud, it has to just be so soft and so comforting and everything. And I'm not saying that's bad. I love my comfortable bathrobe and slippers and all of that, but I just think that if you think about your parenting as, like, am I trying to make everything so that it's just soft and comfortable, and that their sock and their shoe never bothers them, and all of these things, because we're trying to avoid the meltdown. And some of it comes from being aware that our kids are highly sensitive or sensory seeking, and they have these high level of needs. But part of what we're doing as parents is we have to help them to work through that. If their sock is falling down in their shoe, or the sock is uncomfortable, helping them to be able to know how to adjust it so that it's better, or how to find the right a better fit, or whatever it's going to take. Not being kind of mad at the world because it's got sharp edges and hard spots and things like that. So letting our kids be uncomfortable is not abuse. It's not the same as abuse, because growth only comes outside of our comfort zone. And so I think that is really important for us to remember. When you are talking about capability issues, and helping our kids to get through things, I think that sometimes it can help to think about, like, if they break their arm and they have a cast, and they have that cast for a time to stabilize it and to keep it steady. Our goal is not to keep them in a cast forever, or to make the whole world now have to cater to our child because they have a cast, and so everything should be this certain way for them because of that. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have accommodations and things like that. This is a totally different talk from setting up IEPs and 504s and all of that. But just thinking in terms of what we're doing and what we're building and the skills, that when our child breaks their arm, or even when they break their leg, we're not assigning them to a wheelchair for the rest of their life. That our goal is that we're providing the structure so that they can heal, and then we're going to have to do some rehab and teach how to use that arm and make sure they're using it and rebuilding it depending on how severe it is, right? And so I think that is just a really good way to think about in your parenting, what not putting to the kids, like, what lesson can you learn from this? Because no child loves those discussions or is even going to give you appropriate answers for that, and most of them aren't even going to think about it later unless they have to at some point write an essay about it. But giving them the things that they need to be able to go through the challenges. So I'm really in a disagreement of the fact that in our country yesterday with the election results, there were schools across the nation, not every school, not everywhere, but I'm sure there were parents everywhere, different parents, that felt that their children should not have to go to school because they were so disappointed or so sad about the election results. And I really have a hard time, first of all, not seeing that as a parent issue. I think that maybe as a parent you have those feelings because you hopefully studied the sides and the policies and all of those things, and so there could be that level of extreme disappointment. But for our kids, even our kids that are neurodivergent or whatever it is that you think that they're going to encounter that's going to be so difficult that they can't handle it, I really believe that a lot of their information is probably coming from you and or look at the resources that are around them, because I know a lot of kids have a lot of access to resources, and so where is that fear and anxiety coming from? But also when we say, okay, the circumstances are so this way that you can't handle it, we create even more anxiety in our kids than being able to say, you know what, like that really sucks and I'm disappointed, and next time we'll try to do better, or we'll do more to get more people to do this, or to, you know, whatever it is, like whatever your action is going to be, that's what you can center on with your kids. But right now we're going to go to school, and yet all across the nation there were schools that like closed down because they thought it would be too hard for the kids, and you know, just different things. And it's like we need to, I just think we need to empower each other. We need to empower our kids. We need to remove roadblocks where we can, but we need to also understand that sometimes roadblocks help us bounce back to where we need to be. There may be detours, but sometimes that leads us to a different path, and we can't do it for them. We cannot. Sometimes we have to ask our kids, what are you going to do to get through this? Or what are you going to do to overcome this problem that you're having with this person at school? Or to overcome, you know, when you're old enough to vote, what will you do? You know, because we're not giving our kids solutions when we just avoid things, or we just say like, oh, that's terrible and this is the worst day of my life and I can't do anything. I think, you know, one of our legs may be broken, but we still have another leg. We still have a whole life. We still have a whole bunch of things that we need to do, and we have a reason why we're here. Your kids have a reason why they're here, and they are meant to find that purpose in their life. And it may come because of this hard thing that happened. It may come that some of our next best leaders come out of the results of what happened in our elections, that there are other people that say, you know what, like I'm going to rise up and I'm going to stand for the things that I believe in, and I'm going to become something so that I can affect change. And that is the opposite of when people just feel powerless and everything is taken from them and they're constantly a victim of that. So that is my speech today, of like, let's go, right? Like, let's do it. So my coach, who I listen to her coaching all the time, Jody Moore, she said, you know, this is how you get through days that are really hard, is you take deep breaths, you take breaths in, and you remember that emotions are not problems to be solved, or they're not even facts about what's true in the world. They're not problems to be solved, and they're not facts about what's true in the world. There are emotion, and they are information about the thoughts that you are thinking. So when our kids are having big emotional reactions, we know that they're having thoughts that are leading to that. In that moment when they're having those emotions, we're not going to be able to help them with their thoughts because they're trapped in that emotional part of their brain. But we know that there's some work that has to be done to be able to move their processes from just the emotional reactive part of their brains into their frontal cortex so that they can have problem solving skills. They're not bad or wrong. There's not bad or wrong emotions. They're also not truths about what's coming. And I think that's really important for our kids that are highly anxious. They're not truths about what's coming. So remember that the one thing that you have control over is you. And so I love thinking about, who will you be in those moments when your kids are having meltdowns? Who will you be? How are you going to show up? What are you going to do? And also for our kids, like thinking about, what are they going to contribute to this world? What are we contributing? What are our kids going to contribute? What will you offer? Who will you choose to be now? So I want to thank Jody Moore for those thoughts, because they just really added to a lot of the things I was thinking about for this particular episode. I'm really glad to be able to talk to you. Please like and subscribe below. Do that immediately, like right now as you're listening to my voice. Like and subscribe and share these videos with whoever else you think might enjoy it, and look forward to talking to you more. Look in the comments for more links of things that are coming up.